hope this is working like it's supposed to. Get that lighting fixed up. Okay. I figured I would record this. So, all right. He takes the plunge. So you want to go in for a Benko Gambit. I can also go for a Blumenfeld counter Gambit, which is where you go e6 first. And then after knight c3, you go b5 anyway. Knight takes, e takes, c takes. It's a complicated mess. Like bishop to b7. And the knight's sort of unable to help defend the center. And if you spend all the time going like knight here to here to here, even if white keeps the pawn, he'll be behind so much development that it's just not worth it. Or it's equal. Everything's equal, though. All openings are equal. All roads lead to equality. I'm going to go for this. I should have brought a score sheet. That way I could write down the moves. Be good practice. Ugh. Took off my glasses. That way there's no glare. All right. See if he takes both. I think if you're going to if you're going to take one pawn, I think you should take both. They're really popular with the high-rated players, like the Grandmasters, International Masters, is this sort of like E3 move. I don't fully understand it. I asked a Grandmaster about it, and he said that it's to lend further support towards this pawn, which makes no sense, and I told him as much. And he was like, well, maybe there could be a position where, that pawn just is fully supported and then the bishop can take back. And it's like, why? Instead of being... it just doesn't make much sense to me. But that is what the cool kids play. I've also been running into this knight c3 line, which, yes, I think is interesting. I really do. So e4 is the main line. Actually, e4 is the only way to play this. All other versions, and white is actually just worse. Not by much, but I think strategically he's worse forever. So you have to do this. A mistake would be to do knight takes b5. So you want to go e4 first. Yes, this is the mistake, because now I get queen a5 check, and if you'd gone e4 first, right? So the idea is e4, b4, knight to e4, you go b4, they go knight b5, trapping their own knight. The idea is that if there's a capture here, there's lines with queen e2 and knight to d6 mate. So there's a lot of tricks. So you can't take the e-pawn. The e-pawn's tactically defended. It gets very complicated. There's moves like bishop to f4 and then g5 and then bishop takes and then knight takes e4 because it hits the bishop with tempo and they don't have time for all this nonsense. It's a whole mess. So now there's two moves that are good and there's one move that's bad. So this is the bad move. This is the best move, and this is the second best move. And white is actually strategically worse here. Excuse me. Just because of the sheer lack of development, and the space is good, but it does involve responsibility. You have to be responsible. When you grab space, the pawns deserve your attention. And that can be exhausting for a prolonged period of time, having to look at all the different sort of sides of the board. Excuse me. So that's the challenge that white sort of faces here, is that he's going to have to keep an eye on the entire board. His focus needs to encompass sort of this entire box. And while, on the other hand, black's focus is all here, right? This is all that black's going to really focus on. Now, if black's only playing on the queen side, why does white need to focus on the king side? Very good question. The answer is that he has to. This is the best move, and not an easy move to find, I don't think. Now, there's still some pitfalls. White's more or less, according to the engines, probably equal-ish here. So I think it's b takes is the move. You don't want to trade queens. Also, funny enough, I'm realizing this. After queen takes, I can go g6, which is funny. The queen's pinned. But I don't know how good it is, because it might not actually be good. Takes. G6. Takes. Bishop to here. The rook needs to move again. Yeah, but they all go b takes c3. Best, not best, who knows? So this pawn's pinned, and it's really weird like how hard it is to defend. So I'm trying to focus on rapid development. So I want to go bishop to g7. And a very important and key annoying move in this position is bishop to a6. Now, since white's queen is on e2, a lot of times white sort of goes for this, where he'll fianchetto the king side. The downside to doing it that way is it's a little slower than just immediately giving up the castle rights. The second downside is that this c4 square, if we imagine a bishop on a6, bishop to c4, the bishop is weirdly strong on that square. It's sort of, it does a lot, right? So it's attacking this pawn, and this pawn. Now, the knight can kick that piece out, but it takes a little bit of time, and you have to be careful because everything's sort of hanging. This is a slow operation. This is 1, 2, 3. Well, this is 1, or I guess I should say, this is going to gain a tempo because the pawn needs to be defended, right? So 1, tempo here, 2, and then if they go for this, we go here, they go here to defend the pawn, makes sense. And then probably castles is fine. So I'm not really worried about e6, although maybe d6 is sort of good. Knight to there. Feels like I should be. Maybe here. Knight e2. Knight b6. Knight b6 has to be annoying. Sort of forcing the exchange, and then that bishop's sort of free floating. His king's still in the center. My king's still in the center there, though. And there's never really any time to go e4 with the bishop there. Also, queen a6 is a common idea and a common motif. But probably after that, capture, let's say castles, e4. Probably I'll end up taking then. No, I just take immediately, okay. So there's no time for that. There's no time, if he goes there, you know what, that's probably game over. Rook b8. Threatening, there are ideas to threaten like a sack, an exchange sacrifice with the bishop on this long diagonal. Because whatever piece is on b2, you know, gets hit with the bishop takes, or queen takes, you know, it doesn't matter, is they all come with check, and you get back minimum a pawn in almost all those lines. This is awkward for sure. Bishop to d2 seems like the more natural move. Still go here, I think. Though we could go c4. Why isn't c4 on the agenda? Trying to remember what to do against bishop d2. e4. That feels off. Feels off. e4. Well, let's not spend any time here. Bishop to g7 is going to be a good move regardless. It's never going to be a bad move. I don't see any reason for that. I'm not going to spend time on that move. e4 is kind of nutty. Very bold. Maybe it's bishop to d2, queen a4. Bishop to d2, queen a3 is also probably annoying. Bishop to d2, knight a6. The idea, knight a6, is to get the knight to b4, attacking the queen with tempo, and then moving the queen out of this pin. Knight a6 is pretty tempting. So right now, white's behind in development. And I think that's the reason why like e4 didn't appeal to me. It's because like my instinct is that white needs to develop. Now, of course, assuming that white can just develop all of his pieces and castle, and white's definitely better here. Oof. It's a little rough. I think I just castle, right? d6. Yeah. I think I'll just castle. Maybe I'm supposed to go e6 though. Like break down the center with this king in the center like that. No, I think white's worse now. I think d2 was better. Just lining this up and breaking the pin. Pins win, man. Gotta respect the pin. I mean, there's even ideas of like knight here, let's say knight f3, and then just knight b4 takes queen check. But I think I can wait on that entire idea. Like there's no rush for it. Because like, let's say that he moves the bishop. So like here, you know, could do bishop takes, I do bishop takes, and then he goes knight e2, and he says, aha, I'm defending things. I don't know if he is. But this way, we sort of like save a tempo, because if he has to move the bishop twice, that should be good. Knight e2 immediately. Knight a6. Oh, knight a6. Or maybe just e6. Going for the throat. If we're not afraid of d6, Pawn pushes. If he wants to spend more time moving the pawns, that's got to be good. I'll focus on development. You focus on pushing pawns. I think e6 is the right idea. Huh. e6. Again, I don't want to go knight a6 or bishop a6. I want to wait for him to move his bishop first. Though maybe it's not as clear. This is challenging though. I don't think he can ignore it. Bishop c4, bishop a6. Queen d3 takes. And if pawn takes, there's rook check. That's got to be uncomfortable. If queen takes, the c3 pawn's hanging. That's got to be uncomfortable. Here, I just take. He can't take back because of rook e8. I mean, I guess he could and just park the king on the light squares over there. Might be okay over there. It definitely looks sketchy though. One of the things too that I'm doing that should be noted, so I'm using his time. You know, there is also an argument probably for just going bishop a6 anyway. Takes, queen takes, because he can't go c4 because bishop takes. I scoop up the c pawn, and the c pawn's very important. He could go d6. d6. Actually, maybe d6, bishop e6. If he takes again, I have this queen a6 idea. And if he goes e5, go queen c4, knight d2. I'm not too worried about this. It's something that's definitely in the back of my mind. Just because I know that I have this f6 break. I think this is a difficult position for anyone to play. About queen b3? No, I think queen b3 I just take. If just take, queen takes isn't really threatening like anything. could even consider like knight c6. When in doubt, develop. I mean, I can also just take that, so. And he doesn't want to go queen b3, takes. Right, so I thought I'd just take the pawn, right? He wants to park the king on f1. That's gotta be uncomfortable, right? So takes. He wants bishop takes. Oh, I wanted bishop a6 first, right? Bishop a6. Tickle the bishop. Now do I want knight takes, queen takes? Probably queen takes, right? And if he goes c4, I have ed. I guess he could go queen a2. I still have ed. Queen e2, ed. Queen takes, knight takes, ed, rook e8, king d2, knight c6, not knight c6, I mean knight c7. I think that pawn's dropping. If I can keep his rooks disconnected, should have good chances. I guess he can do d takes e now. Is that any good? D takes e. Do I want to do f takes e? I could do d takes, but that seems really passive. So the issue with d takes from like a strategic perspective is that this pawn is isolated now. D takes, f takes is like the natural recapture. I am a little concerned about queen e2. That's trading stuff off, and then my chances to win sort of poof. This is a constant target, though. There's also ideas of f5 that I should always keep in mind. The only issue that I have with this is knight g5 sort of gains in strength. Because the reason why you take f is that way you can go for d5. And you claim that this space is sufficient compensation for these him being up the A pawn. You have space, he has a bad bishop, and his pawns are broken. It's hard to play for a win with the black pieces. It's always hard. So one of the things to consider here is I have a significant time advantage. Even with the 30-second increment, if I keep the queens on, it keeps things very complicated. But I know that trading the queens is the right choice. Why is it so hard? If I wanted to avoid trading the queens, I needed to do knight takes here. Let him castle, and then bring my other rook into the game. You could flick in ED if you really want to, but I would think bringing in the other rook is better. Because there's still threats, right? Forcing him to react, shove his other rook over here. And then you can go, like this. Decide on what we're doing with this bad boy. Maybe c4. I mean, thinking about a position that's not there anymore is probably a waste of time. Whoa. He decides to give the pawn in hopes to castle? Nah, dude, that's a pawn. A pawn's a pawn. It's a big center pawn, too. Big center pawn. Big center pawn. No, you can't do that. Knight c6. Any rook to d1, so we put the f rook to d1. Knight c6, c4. Takes. Lots of stuff to consider here, but he'll probably attack the queen. Knight c6. Queen b8. I wish, just not fast enough. Maybe queen c7 first. c4. Definitely missing a little bit of coordination. Maybe I should go queen to here. That way, if he goes c4, I can just take and I can scoop up the e-pawn. My development starts to fall behind there. Don't want my development to fall behind. Because if my development falls behind, I'll end up probably giving back a pawn. to neutralize his initiative. So I can go queen c7 first. I can go queen c6. Similar sort of idea. What if he goes e5? Queen c6, e5 is kind of annoying, so I think I have to go like c7. Let's not allow him to bring the rook to the best file with tempo. I guess if he goes c4, I take the bishop. Could also blunder with like bishop h6, queen c3. Always a choice. There is another downside to him going c4. That's after knight c6. I have the b4 and d4 square. But my dark squares do become very weak. Queen c7 is too safe. I should have went to f4. f4, I also patrol the dark squares. But I don't know why, I was just a little concerned about stuff like this. Bishop to c1, and then my queen has to come over here. h6 here. I couldn't figure out what I'm doing. My queen on h5. Also super defensive. I think this is fine. I shouldn't overthink it. Yeah, he goes for that, which makes sense, you know. So let's take the bishop. I can go knight c6, let him take, and then check king to there, and then it's his turn. So takes, knight c6, his turn. It's the same position, right? I could play e5. Huh. Ugh. e5's kinda... It keeps more pieces on the board. e5, knight c6. And the terrible idea is to go knight d4. I give up the d5 square forever, though. Not so easy for him to get to d5. The fastest way I can see is through here. I'm probably missing another way to get there, though. Or 3, 4. I don't like e5. I don't like this giant hole, even though it's going to take him like 4 moves to get there. And in that time, I can do things like 1, 2, 3. Gee Willikers. Trying to decide on which way I would want to take to after he does bishop takes. I go here. Do I want to take with the c pawn? Probably I'll take with the e pawn because my bishop can come out better this way. Also blocks down this. When I have like longer time control games, I play stuff that it just feels a little sketchy. But I think concretely, like calculating things out, this should be best, especially considering the usage of time that my opponent's making. Every single move he's using a lot of time. So to keep things more double-edged has to be very beneficial. It also makes the knight on f3 like especially a little dubious, right? Right. Gives away that pawn. Jeez. Let's complicate things. That'll be in my favor. I mean, why can't I take? Bishop takes, I take, he takes. I take. He takes, I take. He takes, I take. I'm up a pawn. But there's this 4. It's 4 on 3. Does he know how to draw the 4 on 3? I feel like if I don't go for this, then I'm strategically... It's dubious not to go for this, because he'll go a3, right? Knight c6, a3. Rook fd1. Rook to there. I guess the question is, can he hold on to the a pawn now that he's moved the rook, or does he have to end up putting the rook back? Because if he has to end up putting the rook back, then this should be good for me, right? I mean, bishop takes. Unless I'm missing something like a knight t2 move. takes. Knight to there. Knight to there breaks the coordination of these. Maybe it would be better to go to a4. I would have a passed c pawn. E5's a little concerning, actually. Or is it knight c6, e8 there? Less concerned about that now. I should have enough activity. There's ideas of bishop to h6 there. Sliding the rooks over like there. And if he pushes the f pawn, the g pawn becomes very difficult to defend. The whole square, the complex. Talking myself into this, I don't see a good reason not to take the a pawn. It's just how bad I am. Okay, he goes for this. I take. He takes. I take. Dude, I hallucinated that I would have the e pawn, not the c pawn. This is completely different. Guess I take. He takes, and then I go knight c6 and say, huzzah, I'm better somehow. I don't think I can, after rook c1, I don't think I can defend the c pawn. Diggity dang darn. And I think knight a6 is a mistake. Bishop to there. 3 squares off the knight. Knight's dominated. Very complicated. Very complicated. But I think objectively, this is probably still This is probably still a draw. But white can never win. He can only draw. That should be worth something, right? Bishop d6 also comes with tempo. But my rook kind of wants to tickle the e4 pawn anyway. If possible, I mean, I would love to do something like knight c6. Yeah. So I think I go rook here. So maybe rook to c8 is better. Rook to c8 takes. The idea of going like rook c8 into this line, the idea, which is probably not good, is to get both of the rooks on the 7th and say, yes, you get your pawn back, but my pieces will be more active. But I don't know if it's actually good. Because knight c6 does a similar sort of like idea, right? You take knight to d4, knight takes, bishop takes, or he doesn't have to take with the knight, but that knight's really not happy there. I do have to reckon with ideas like this, but this pawn's going to be easier to promote than this pawn. It's the underlining theme. If I go here, this is going into the same line, right? Takes. I could go bishop here. I mean, there are no queens, right? Just bishop to there and say that these two pawns are better than this one. Feels like a stretch. I would need to get good activity. Also, this knight, well, again, just gets dominated. Knight c6, very defensive knight. Maybe I'm missing something here. Yeah, I'm missing my exchange. That's what I'm missing. Of course he plays well. Very difficult. I don't want to go rook e8 because if his threat is to take the knight on c6, I don't see a better move. Maybe bishop to here. Bishop to here. Rook to there. Takes. Huh? Wait, maybe there is something to this. Because when I take back with the pawn, the bishop's a little loose, right? It's an undefended piece. So bishop to here. Rook to there. It's the only real concern. So I take, and then he takes, and then I have less than nothing. I mean, I keep my pawns. Bishop to b5, bishop to d6 here. Don't want to spend all my time I feel like I'm missing something. This is a dangerous move. It's also important that I don't get move ordered, something like this. It's imperative that the rook ends up on c8 to defend this pawn, or else it can get overloaded. So nuggets, man. perfect. I've equalized the time. So this was the idea. I think it's devious. Because now if knight takes, I do pawn takes. And those two pieces are attacked. If here, then I have time for knight c6. And like through the power of friendship, I hold on to my extra pawn. You know, another important thing here is white doesn't have Luft. And he's going to have to spend a tempo. What am I missing? There. If he takes, I take that with check. He should have spent more time there. He spent, well, I can't see the time usage, but I don't think he spent very long there. Yeah, because the double attack is very real. If you take, then takes. Bishop back to there. Minimum, I can take that. But I could also maybe push. And he can't take back because of the back rank. So... There. Yeah. This is, I think, lost now. Just too fast. White moved way too fast there. What I think ended up happening was that he calculated out a line, probably from here after rook e3, calculated out a line, saw bishop d4, calculated out knight takes, rook takes, and was like, okay, that's good. Got into this position. I go bishop to d4, and he just follows the calculation, but missed d takes. And if he had, of course, stopped after rook to d4, done a blunder check. It was too fast to do a blunder check. There's no way you did a blunder check. That's what I would suspect happened here. Just followed the initial calculation. You know, I think that this is also winning. Like, let's see, bishop d6, there, takes, f6, d5, go king to there. Maybe instead of d5, I need to go... No, d5, I lose this pawn, but the d pawn becomes too strong. So let's go through all that again. e2, tickling the rook. He has back rank issues. That's the other benefit to this too, is that I don't solve his back rank issues. Now if I take, his idea is after king takes rook to here, is that he can go e5, and that bishop sort of just sits. But I think this is cleaner, so now that we're in an end game, I should spend my time hopefully wisely. So I'm thinking here, takes. He takes, I take, f6. And unfortunately, I'm just a tempo too slow with all this stuff. But I'll probably go d5, defending the rook. King to f2. King to e7. He moves the rook. I make a queen. Take. King to there, king to there, king to there. And yes, he has this opposition. But unfortunately, I can use this pawn to distract him. Win these pawns. Oh. I almost inverted that. Oh. Well, I think that's also still winning, right? Takes, push. Is it transpose? Well, what about takes? I'm trying to think if there's maybe an easier way, like keeping the rook on. There's some complications, though, if I keep him with this bishop, because the dark squares become weak. I think the engine would keep the rook. But I think that this is very... strong. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, why can't I do this? Maybe because of, like, bishop takes, the bishop, wait, what? So if I go here, he takes, I go there, bishop can come back and defend. Oops, right? So I should take, he goes f6. Yes. When he takes, I can take back. He goes f3. I do lose a tempo, but I don't think it matters. It doesn't matter. What's more important than being incredibly accurate, I think, is finding the simplest way to win. This is very simple, and I think it wins. Yeah, I'm very sure that this is winning. We go here. And this is, I think, awkward for him. After he goes there, big king to here is good. He sort of can't move anything. Yeah. promote to a queen. Yeah, okay. King to here. He goes there and here. I know my king and pawn rook endings. You know, I can also do this. I wanted to go here to prevent him from going there. I don't think it particularly super matters. We'll lock up these, prevent any counterplay over here. Prevent him from being able to have any extra sort of like pawn moves. And now I have this. I can use this pawn to waste 2 moves. So here, I just go here, he goes there, and then I push. Hell, I could push 1, and then whichever way he goes, that square's free. This is winning. Okay. Okay, yeah, this is lost. I can't find any counterplay now. Whew. It wasn't easy. So we'll go over this game. The knight c3 line, I think you have to play it with the e4. And there are complications there. But this is a little toothless. Although queen c2 is the right way. It's like the best move. A lot of people play bishop d2. E4 feels a little slow. Okay, he takes, I take. I guess his idea is to go, what, here? I go here, he goes there, push, takes, push, there, there. You know, I can also, if he goes there, I can also just go here. If he goes there. D4. That probably is the way to do it with like the least amount of counterplay. Although I think I'm winning this race too. Yeah, he resigns. Okay. Go ahead and end the recording here.